Listen up, people. That's right. It's time to listen to the sparks of bliss in your life. I'm your host and life coach, Caroline de Posada from Miami, Florida. And this podcast is an invitation to join me in upgrading our mindset, wellness, and relationships so that together we create a life that unlocks our bliss. Join me each week as we explore practical strategies, inspiring stories, and the moments of clarity, or as we like to call them, los momenticos, that make the world a little more magical. Consider this your weekly dose of wisdom in your pocket. Are you ready? Let's do this. Hey guys, and welcome to episode number 2 of Blissin' Up. If you're listening to this on the day that the recording airs, it is Mother's Day. So just want to take a minute to wish all the amazing mothers out there a happy Mother's Day. On a day like today, we remember and we celebrate the women in our lives that have been mothers or mother figures, the women that have impacted us and helped us take this journey in this lifetime. And those are very, very special women. And also, we have the opportunity of remembering that even for those of us who have complicated relationships with our mothers, or maybe no relationship at all with our mothers, if not but for them, we would not be in this earth. So one of the things that we have the opportunity to do is get to think how grateful we are that we are alive and that we are here, and that person, that woman, was our journey, our entryway into this world. And for that, we can be very, very grateful. Even if only for that, we can be very, very grateful. I don't know. I'm just thinking about all the relationships we have with the women in our lives, with the mothers in our lives. And for what they're worth, they all have value. They all are part of our becoming. They are all part of us creating identities, breaking identities, starting patterns, breaking patterns, just becoming. And that journey is important, and it's part of what defines us and part of our story. So regardless if it's a good one or a bad one, there is probably something to take from it and to be grateful for. As for my mom, if you're listening to this podcast, you, my lady, are the wind beneath my wings. And I am so very grateful that you were the mom chosen for me in this lifetime. I wouldn't have traded you for anyone else in the world. You are truly the hero of my story. So happy Mother's Day. I love you. So on to today's episode. I have to tell you guys that this week has been very interesting, as my friend Dr. Sanchez always uses the word interesting in lieu of saying like terrible or awful or whatever. He'll be like, it's interesting. So I would say this week has been very interesting for me. I told you guys last week that I had gotten sick right before I recorded the episode, my very, very first episode of Blissin' Up. And I thought it would be over by now, but to be honest with you, I developed this ear infection and it has persisted. It has lingered and it has been very painful and very consuming, and quite frankly, a little debilitating, just kind of taking me out of that peak state that I like to operate in and lowering my vibration and just kind of bringing me down. I have been sad and just I don't know, just down. You know, I can barely talk. I've been conserving my energy so that I talk only on my one-on-one sessions, because I continue to work throughout the experience. So I would like conserve my energy, which means I wouldn't talk to like my friends. I can't hear from my right ear. It's been a real bummer. It really has. And it's so ironic because I have been looking forward to starting this podcast for such a long time. And I envisioned starting a podcast in which I would talk about just like life being magical and synchronistic and beautiful and joyful. And my friends often joke that if I could bottle up my joy and give it to people as a pill, they would be so much happier. And I was like, I am gonna bottle up my joy and give it to people in my podcast. And then I was thrown this major curveball in which I have felt, like I said last week, everything but bliss. I have felt so down. And despite that, this experience has led me to ask some deep, deep questions. It's led me to some deep revelations and reflections and some powerful mindset shifts. And I've realized this is when we need sparks of bliss the most. It's easy to feel sparks of bliss when things are going well, but when life gets hard and, painful and you're in the thick of it, how do you come out of the dark? How do you put yourself on a path to healing? And how do you listen? How do you pay attention for those sparks of bliss that maybe are so subtle, they're so hard to hear that you might not even feel them? And how do you behave in a way that invites bliss to find you so that when you are ready, you can really experience a peak vibrational state. You can really experience and savor and enjoy a peak state. So those are all these questions that I've been asking, and I think it's been very powerful and very important and very synchronistic that I have gone through this experience. So here are a couple of things, 3 things in particular that I want to share with you for today that I think will get you on the right path. And if you are in a dark place, or you are in pain, or you are in the midst of a curveball that life has thrown at you, and you feel like you have no connection right now to your joy, or no connection to happiness or synchronicity, or you're just like stuck in negative programming, I feel like this episode is going to help you. The first one is changing the question from why me to what's in this for me to learn, right? I was talking to one of my coaching clients this week, and he's struggling with alcoholism. And one of the things that he was telling me was that he often asks the question, why me? Like, why me? Why am I the one that can't have a drink at a party? Why am I the one that can't be normal? Why am I the one that, is struggling with this and can't have fun and can't go to, the bars and drink beer with my friends and, go to the big concerts and the basketball games and all this kind of stuff. And as he was sharing with that, he even mentioned to me that if he were in my position at the moment, because he knew about my ear infection, that he would be asking, why me? Why did I get an ear infection? So what I was explaining to him is that the initial reaction that we all get, human nature, is why me? Like, why did I get this? Why did I get this right before my podcast launch? Why am I dealing with this? Why? But here's the thing about the why me question. When you ask why me, for one thing, you have to ask why me for everything, right? Because yes, why you? Why are you going through this? But why did you receive all the blessings that you've received? Or were you fortunate enough to be born to this family or in this country or with these resources, right? There's for all the bad things that we're given in our life, there are definitely things that we receive that we did not deserve, both good and bad. So why me is really not a very useful question. But it's normal to experience it at the beginning. So once you have that question in your brain, then, well, how do you reframe that? And you reframe that into asking, what's in it for me to learn? Why is this happening for me to grow? Where is my power in this? How can I be grateful for this experience? How can I surrender to this experience? How can I accept this experience so that it could help me be of service to humanity, be more helpful to the people around me, be a better human, be a stronger human? So, not why me, but what's in it for me to learn. And when you shift that question, then all of a sudden you start approaching it with curiosity and with a little bit more gratitude. You know, my husband laughed at me the other day because I was telling someone that I was very grateful for this pain because I knew that I was learning something from it. And he laughs at me. He's like, he thinks I'm a nut job. And I get it, right? It sounds a little crazy. And it honestly sounds a little fake to be like, oh, I'm so grateful for this pain. When I'm riveting in pain in that moment, I'm not grateful. But when I have the chance to step away from it a little bit, then I can be deeply grateful for what I'm learning from it. And I think that's a nuance that we get to distinguish between. It's not that I want the pain or that I want to sit and like have my ear hurt, or I'm so lucky that my ear hurts. I don't feel that. But I feel like, man, I am creating a body of work about listening, and I can't hear what's in there for me to learn. Does it mean that I have to listen more to my intuition? Does it mean that I need to stop hearing outside influences? Does it mean that listening isn't the same as hearing? What does it mean? And how am I going to use that in service for my community, for humanity, for my clients? And once you start to shift that narrative, then you can experience some gratitude and some acceptance. The second mindset shift that served me and hopefully will serve you is that nothing has to change for you to decide that you are going to change. You know, at first when you're experiencing pain, it's very all-consuming. And this experience for me was very all-consuming. At the beginning, all I could do was sleep, cry, and focus on the pain. Like, that's it. And I ended up going to ER. I went to the doctor. I went to the chiropractor. I've gotten a ton of medicine. I've done herbal remedies, natural remedies. I've gotten onto antibiotics. I've done all this stuff. I had to finally get on ibuprofen, which, if you know me, you know that I have a pretty high tolerance for pain. Like, I'm not one to run to medicine, but I was in excruciating pain, and it was all consuming for a little while. And a few days ago, I got up and the first thing that I thought was, like, when I wake up every morning, my first thought is my ear still clogged? Can I hear? And then I assess the situation, and every day it's not healed yet. Like, I still can't hear from my right ear. But on this particular day, I woke up and I thought, oh my God, can I hear? And then my next thought was, I need to behave as if I am healed. I need to start changing the narrative. And it reminded me of my friend Betsy. And as you listen to this podcast, you'll hear me talk about a lot of important people in my life. And Betsy is one of those people. And she's a therapist and she has a life coaching school, which you should definitely check out. I'll link it in my show notes. And she has taught me a lot. She wrote a book called Hurt to Hope because her daughter passed away when she was 2 years old, 2 years and 9 months. And she had to go from the pain of losing a daughter to living a life filled with hope and purpose and joy. And that has been very helpful for me. And one of the things that she often talks about is how nothing has to change and everything can still change, right? It's about reframing your perspective, which is one of the keys of tapping into your resilience. You reframe your perspective. So when I woke up that morning, I thought of her and I thought of my pain and I said, nothing has changed, but everything is going to change. So I did my sauna in the morning and then I took a shower and I put on makeup and I got dressed nice and I took my ibuprofen, but I just decided that I was going to behave differently. I was going to show up as if I was healed. And I struggled with this a little bit, and I don't know if you struggle with this, but I did struggle with this a little bit, is this idea that you have made a decision that you are healed, but your body hasn't quite caught up to that decision. So you don't feel yet what you are claiming. So I was claiming that I was healed, but I didn't feel healed yet. So how do you navigate in that little gap, right? And I talked to my friend Dr. Sanchez, who's another character you'll hear a lot about. He's the one that I do Rejuva Fast with. And I talked to him about that and I said, I don't want to lie and say, like if somebody asks me how you're feeling, I don't want to lie and say, oh, I feel great, I feel amazing, because I don't. And I understand that I am claiming and declaring that I'm healed. So how do you navigate that? And he suggested the word interesting. He said, well, you can just say, when people ask you, like, how are you feeling? Well, it's interesting. I'm still on my way. It's interesting, rather than, oh, I feel so horrible. I feel terrible. I'm dying, which is what I was saying at the beginning. So I thought a lot about how Betsy would wake up in the morning and every day she had to remember and accept that her circumstance had not changed. Her daughter had passed, and that was the reality that she was living in. And she had to claim that she was going to be a happy, joyful person, even though she had not yet started to feel happiness. But the decisions that she made and the actions she took were aligned with that decision. And eventually she started to feel better. So I know that I eventually will start to feel better. I'm doing all the things that I'm supposed to be doing. I'm taking the medicines I'm supposed to be taking. I am participating in my recovery, right, and my healing. And I am behaving as if I am healed, knowing that one day I am going to feel better, even though I don't know exactly when that's going to be. And then the third mindset shift that has helped me, and this is where we think about living a life that invites bliss to find you, is looking for moments that could be blissful even when you are not in a bliss state, when you're not in a peak state. And this reminds me of a gratitude practice. there have been studies done about why gratitude practices are so important and why you should have a gratitude practice. And I listened to this podcast once, and a scientist was talking about how the magic of gratitude is not necessarily in feeling grateful for something. The magic of gratitude is looking for something to be grateful for. The magic happens in the quest, in the search for something to be grateful for. So on Saturday night, I was riveting in pain. I was at the peak of my pain, and I was sobbing, crying like a little girl. And I laid on my bed with, a patch on my ear. I'd just taken my medicine, and I just was crying. And my 3 boys and my husband all came to my bedside, and they sat around me. And my middle child, Justin, said, "Hey guys, let's pray for mommy." And they all held hands and they just prayed for me. And then my husband said, "Oh God, I'm going to give you a little massage. Tell me if this makes you feel better." And he started massaging my neck and kind of rubbing in that area between my ear and my collarbone. And it did feel better. And just all of my family was gathered on me. And as I experienced that moment and I felt this deep, deep pain, I also felt that this was a moment that I would one day remember it as a blissful moment, even though I didn't have the capacity to feel that intensity, that peak vibration of bliss in that moment, because I had too much pain. But I was so grateful for that moment, and I knew that I needed to hold on to it, that I needed to savor it, because I felt so supported and so loved and so blessed to have this family with me in that moment. And I knew that was going to turn into a blissful moment at some point in my life. So I was thinking about when you are feeling just deep sorrow, or a deep, you're in that dark, dark moment, and someone lends you a hand, someone gives you a hug, someone does something generous or kind for you, when you get a moment of relief, when you get any blessing that comes your way that sheds a little bit of light in that painful moment, that is a moment that you can document in your brain to remember one day as a blissful moment, a moment that has contributed to a meaningful, magical, good life. I hope that helps you guys. Those are my 3 suggestions. That is what I've been experiencing this week. That's where I'm at. This ear infection has been a mystery, and I believe in enjoying the mystery in life. And although I haven't enjoyed the ear infection, I know that this is putting me on a path, that this is leading me to ask more questions, to be more curious, to understand life better. And it just feels very synchronistic. And I will often talk about synchronicity in this podcast, because I believe in synchronicity and those little moments that tell you that you're on an aligned path. And I've always connected those to positive moments. I've never connected them to negative moments. But in this particular case, I have connected the synchronicity of my ear being clogged with my ability to listen for bliss. And I know that has me on a path. And hopefully it's a path that you're going to take with me, that we're going to do together. So I hope this has served you. Please send me an email. Let me know if you had any takeaways from this podcast. I'm starting out this new thing and I'm just talking to myself. So I'm used to talking in community on my Zooms or with my one-on-one clients. So I get feedback. But with this podcast, I'm not getting any feedback other than those of you that are sending me messages and asking me questions or posting a review. So thank you for that. And please let me know. Let me know if any of this resonated with you, if you connected to it. If you have any more questions about it, and we'll see where this takes us to next week. So hopefully by then I will be fully 100% healed and in a much better state. And hopefully you'll be in a better state too, so that we can move on to newer and more exciting adventures and just take this path together. So happy Sunday, everybody. Happy Mother's Day. And see you next week. That's it for today's episode. Thanks so much for being here. I am deeply, deeply grateful for this time to connect. Now, if you are feeling called to dig deeper and really work on elevating your mindset, your wellness, and your relationships, and you're looking for a life coach to work with you one-on-one, and really help you just retrain your brain, define success on your own terms, and just live healthier, happier, and more meaningful life, well, I invite you to schedule a consult with me. Let's have a conversation and see if working together is in our future. You can find the link to calendar of consult right there in my show notes, but you can also connect with me on my website, carolinedeposada.com, or send me a DM on Instagram at Caroline de Posada. I'm so excited to connect with you a little further. Now, as far as this podcast goes, I would so appreciate if you could leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Those reviews help us so much. And like my friend always says, the project is big and you're a part of it. So thank you for helping me spread good in this world.